Many people harbour a fear of death and or dying, and a lot of people feel they're interchangeable terms, simply meaning the end of you. But I and others consider them distinct terms. Death is the end of you, your lack of existence, your non-continuance in this realm. Dying is how you get there. I have no fear of death. I don't have any kind of religious belief in an afterlife or anything like that that gives me hope, when I die, I'm going to meet someone in the sky or whatever. I don't have that. I just know that I basically came from nothing and I'll likely return to nothing. As long as I leave something behind, a legacy that makes the world better than when I entered it, I'm happy with that. That's fine. Death happens to us all. It's healthy. It's normal. But I know that people can suffer on their way to that final place. And that's terrifying. I also have a sadness for the people I leave behind. I don't want to hurt people, so having a way of doing that I have no control over is awful. Also, a lack of control is kind of scary on its own. But even when people try to take control over that end, it doesn't always end up as smooth, for want of a better word, and easy as they hope. So yeah, I have a fear of dying but not of death. But why am I talking about this? Because today we're talking about A Mortician's Tale by Laundry Bear Games. And it's very death positive. Throughout the game you're given, missions to do funerals through email. But also in those emails are correspondence with someone who works in a museum and deals with mummies and stuff like that. Also very death positive. Talks about how fun it is and how difficult it is when you're trying to talk about dead bodies with people who don't work in the field. You've also got a newsletter that comes through that talks about different funerary practices in different cultures. Some wear black, some wear white, some just want you to dress modestly, some do certain things like armbands, and these are all fascinating, and it talks about green burials and things like that. So it's a good way of educating, and that's what this game is. It's educating people about death, about funerary rites, and hoping, I'm possibly projecting here, but I feel that they're hoping to encourage a more death positive approach. Because whilst, obviously we should live our lives without constantly thinking of that spectre of death, if you will, over our shoulder, it's worth being, desensitized to it to a degree. Not sort of worrying about what will happen, not overthinking it, but simply going, it's a thing that will happen. And like I say, as long as I leave a good impact on the world, then it's fine. But Charlie, who we play as, goes through a typical routine. You'll get a job to either clean or to cremate or to fully embalm a body and then present it at a funeral. There's 2 parts to each chapter, as I think of them. And the first part, I got into a routine with the embalming. It's just like, do that, stuff the mouth, sew it up, put the tube in. I got into a nice rhythm, and it was very kind of almost zen, awful as that is to say. But the second part of each mission, if you will, was the bit that really spoke to me. Because you go and present the casket or the urn or whatever, and you talk to people around the room. And I always had a routine. I just did it on the first one, and it just felt right afterwards. Talk to the living, soothe the living, make sure they're okay. And then as the final act, pay the respects to the deceased before going back behind the door and going on to the next mission. And that always felt right to me. This is going to sound really silly probably to some people, but I even would say thank you as I made Charlie bow at the urn or the casket, but I would pay my respects myself to these fictional dead people because I'd spent time preparing them. And that felt just right to me. It reminded me of when I used to live near a funeral director's. And I thought to myself, could I do that job? It was when I was kind of like, I need some way of bringing in money. And that might be something that fits. But whilst my desire to help people has been quite long-standing, in fact, just sidebarring for a second, I used to work in a call centre, and one of the sort of provisioning management team would often, we'd chat throughout the day whenever I had downtime, which wasn't that often, as you can imagine. But he'd always ask, what is your sole purpose of being here? The correct response being to make people happy. And that has been part of my psyche for a long time. But that's what I felt I could bring to something like a funeral director's. Not necessarily making people happy, but making people feel better about losing a loved one. My empathetic and emotional side said, yeah, you're just going to break down like every day, aren't you? You know, around crying people constantly, even if like they're just upset and trying to, you know, stiff upper lip it through, if you will. You can tell that they're upset. I know I couldn't deal with that. So whilst I would probably feel fulfillment in some way through this kind of career, I just know that my emotional issues would not make that good for me. But this game really gave me that feeling back, of feeling like I can do good in the world, of feeling like I can help people in difficult times. It's something that, you know, I still feel reward from, even if there's a heavy emotional toll later on. You know, you try and not obviously carry the baggage, but it does sometimes happen, and that's fine. But Charlie's story was beautiful. You know, it's again death positive, but also it's about a person who can stand by her morals. There is at least one mission where you do get a choice. The deceased said, I want this. But his family go, well, there isn't anything written down, so we have overriding say, this is what we're going to do. And you do get the opportunity to refuse. I was like, I can't do that. I had that respect. Again, it's not even a real person in any way, shape or form. But I had the respect to go, I cannot. I'm sorry. The dead, you know, the guy himself said, I want this, and they're saying no. I can't do that ethically. And then at the end of the game, the evil corporation takes over and gets you to do a job that they basically upsold. This person who wanted, you know, to respect their own culture, to do a home funeral. And they were upsold going, oh, you don't want them rotting in your living room or whatever. As long as you keep the place cool, you're fine. Decomposition takes a long time in cool environments. But that upsell just crushed me. I was almost going to put the game down. But luckily, shortly after, Charlie went out on her own. I actually noticed that there was a tab open. I missed some of those in the intervening days. I caught a couple of them, but one of them I did catch was the registration of business page. And I was like, okay, I know where this is going. And Charlie gets to start her own business, which does green burials, which does home funerals. It listens to the wishes of the deceased. It listens to the families. It doesn't try to upsell. And that made me happy. I left feeling a lot more positive than I thought I was going to in a game about morticians. And like I say, it's death positive. It's really kind of dealing with, you know, the difficulties I think as well faced by small businesses in trying to stay true to their roots, to their ideas, to what their goals are, their ethics, and having to fight against big corporations to stay afloat or to keep those values once they're sort of taken over as a subsidiary. But it's worth a play. I really enjoyed it. It doesn't take too long to play through, about an hour or so, I think, give or take. And if you're kind of unsure about death and funerary things, maybe it'll make you feel a bit better about them all. You know, it's not going to make you super happy about death, obviously. Nothing will do that. Nothing should do that. But it's worthy of my time and I think yours. So that's all I want to say about it. So until next time, thank you very much for watching. And as always, take care.